été le 14e Dalai Lama de Tibet, His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet.
Hello.
Let's see.
The mission of the Tenzin Gyatso Institute is to advance and explore and put into action some of the aims and ideals of Tenzin Gyatso, who is the 14th Dalai Lama.
I'm Canadian, and especially I'm Quebec. So, I also can sort of express I'm Asian, I'm Tibetan. But then, more deeper level, we are human beings.
The Tenzin Gyatso Institute was founded by a Tibetan Buddhist teacher called Sogyal Rinpoche, who wrote this book called the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying.
In fact, if you were to say, what is the essence of teaching of Buddha? It's to transform the mind. Transform the mind, transform our being.
Sogyal Rinpoche in those early days was one of the very first translators for His Holiness when he traveled in capitals around the world to teach. And Sogyal Rinpoche helped organize many of the first teachings the Dalai Lama ever gave in the West. And he's always wanted to find a vehicle or a way of honoring His Holiness's work in the world. And so he founded the Tenzin Gyatso Institute.
Could anything be more appropriate than to celebrate this day by giving the Peace Prize to you, to a man now recognized all over the world as one of the most prominent spokesmen for a true, just, and lasting peace.
I am no one special, but I believe the prize is a recognition of the true value of altruism, love, compassion, and non-violence.
The spiritual foundation of this Tenzin Gyatso Institute, of course, because it's founded after His Holiness the Dalai Lama, is based on this notion that compassion is one of the answers for our troubled world.
His Holiness has not only encouraged, but indeed has catalyzed serious scientific investigative review of, for example, the power of compassion and kindness and their potential to address fundamental problems of the world. This search is at the core of his teaching.
We have three primary programs at the moment. One is the Tenzin Gyatso Scholars Program, where we're bringing these monastic scholars to study in American universities, with the aim that they'll in some ways replicate the same journey that the Dalai Lama took.
There have now been a decade or more of dialogues between neuroscientists and cognitive scientists and Buddhist practitioners, contemplatives, and scholars, where it's become very, very clear that the West has a very, very solid understanding of the brain and how it works and so on. But when it comes to the subtleties of the mind, when it comes to understanding the possibilities of human potential in cultivating the mind, Buddhism is far ahead of where the West is now.
The Tenzin Gyatso Scholars Program, what it does is to really bring bright students from these monastic institutions who have already a very strong basis in their classical education, but then they are provided a forum where they can deepen their understanding of the modern society.
I was giving a lecture in mechanics and we were talking about Newton's laws and forces. I put the eraser on the desk and I said there's something called the eraser doesn't fall down because there's a force pushing up. It's a normal force, it's called. It's the force pushing up on the desk, okay? And one of the monks raised his hand and he had a question. An Emory student would have asked, well, how do you calculate the normal force? His question was, how long will that force exist? Okay. No student had ever asked me that question.
Through realistic approach, the goal what you want can achieve. Unrealistic method will not bring your goal. So in order to carry realistic sort of approach, you must know the reality fully.
The Western science by far, that has mainly focused on exploring external world, like the physical world, and has made tremendous advancement. I mean, that we know so much about the external world. The Buddhist tradition, on the other hand, has for centuries focused on exploring inner world of the mind, the emotions.
Up until, quite recently, the interior world was thought to be messy. It's a world of emotion, it's a world of intuition. It's too nebulous for science to have a handle on. But now, as technology and methodology becomes more sophisticated, the concepts also proliferate. Along with it also comes more sophisticated interpretation. So scientists are being pushed consciously or unconsciously towards the domain of spirituality, where they are confronted with the question of, then what do we do with this knowledge? How do we fit this knowledge within our understanding of the material world?
And what the East brings to the table, particularly Buddhism, is a range of practiced and tested and verified methodologies for cultivating positive states, states of compassion, of equanimity, of focus, of calm. And the two together create a very powerful tool for finding what are the methods that can help anybody, not just Buddhist practitioners, but anybody manage their own mind better. How can those tools then be transferred to people at large through schools or programs, maybe in the workplace and so on? Before that can happen, we need to have a group of people like the scholars who can work with the scientists to bring those two things together. And I think that the fruits will help everybody.
Our aspiration is that the Tenzin Gyatso Scholars Program can contribute to that commitment by advancing this dialogue, this conversation between the Tibetan Buddhist tradition and Western scientists.
What we learned from past century, violence won't solve problem. So only through dialogue. Whenever we face a potential of conflict, must try to solve through talk. I usually say telling, 20th century become century of bloodshed. Now this century should be century of dialogue.
Religious harmony is something else we're in the business of promoting, of advancing the cause that regardless of your faith, regardless if you have no faith, men and women, people of all backgrounds, that we share a common understanding with each other. We share a common humanity.
Everybody wants a happy life. 100% same. Everybody do not want suffering, do not want problem.
We are promoting a program at the Vatican that will bring together a Tibetan Buddhist Tenzin Gyatso scholar, how we can support other initiatives put on by other institutions that will advance this idea that understanding other traditions is important to understanding our common humanity.
Firstly, too much sort of stress, differences of nationality or races, religious belief, these things. So we are neglect about the fundamental sameness of human being.
The third major focus of the Tenzin Gyatso Institute is on programs that are focused on what we call compassionate social action. So programs that will advance the causes of justice, things like environmental sustainability, things around poverty, things around equality for all people.
We must think whole humanity as a we. All part of the humanity is part of us, part of we. Then I think many problems reduce. Consider others as a part of you. Then there's no basis of violence, no basis of war. War and violence very much based on concept of I and they, we and they. So now that, according to today's reality, outdated. Destruction of your neighbor is actually destruction of yourself.
It's important to support the Tenzin Gyatso Institute if you believe that compassion is one of the keys that can help transform our world.
We must think about the sameness of humanity.
If you believe in these ideals of altruism, joy, compassion, then we believe the Tenzin Gyatso Institute offers people a unique opportunity to be part of something that can actually change the world, that can actually speak to our best selves, that can advance the causes of our shared interest, of our common humanity.
You yourself must develop self-confidence and realize potential, share with more people. 1,000 people make effort, it can multiply 10,000 and 100,000. That's the way to change human mind. Everybody has right, same right of being happy human